Hey, I'm doing amazing. Hey, thanks for putting this show and tell together. This is awesome. Love seeing it. So for today, basically, I'm a security engineer, and a lot of times in startups, you find that the ecosystem is not secure by design, right? It's typically fast-paced, people trying to move, trying to produce, trying to be high velocity. And typically, if there's tech debt, they tackle that last. And especially if it's security tech debt, they tend to tackle that if ever, right? So one of the things that I want to do was I want to see if I could use prompt engineering to be able to build a tooling to help with some of these bad security practices to make it more safe until they had time to go and fix the root cause. So that being said, I will go ahead and share my screen. Cool. So the program that I built, once again, when I'm done, I'll share it with you. I wanted to try to capture 0 to 1 of what was my logic into building this application. This application focused on a few things. One, developers telling me that they don't understand security from Docker, from Helm, from an application. You throw out words like CIS, they're like, I don't know what that means. I'm like, cool, I could teach you. And they're like, I don't have time. The next one is I'm at a startup. So once again, we're all about the developer doing a lot of the engineering, right? And then when things break, right, you want to be able to use these enterprise-ready tools, but a lot of times I see teams just hop into Kubernetes clusters and make kube exec calls, hook into databases, and do sketchy things. So that being said, we built this tool called Dallas Debugger. And what it does is I said, hey, I wanted to build an application that was secure by design. I said, hey, I wanted to be CIS straight off the bat. So I started building out these rules for it. I said, hey, I don't want anything to touch disk. I want it to be immutable. I don't want you to go curling kubectl and putting it on my system. I don't want you to create sensitive data on my system. I want everything to run in memory. Then I said, hey, I want to be able to template this so I can give it to developers to show them how to build this Docker image. Then as I moved further, I said, hey, I want to now build a Helm chart, right? Once again, while Docker and Helm aren't different, they play nicely together. It's still a different capability you got to understand. And they have different rules to go by. And I said, hey, Helm, do you have a CIS? Can you apply it here? Can you kublint this? Can you make sure that all security best practices are in place? Once again, when that was done, abstract this out so my developers can use this as well. Then I said, hey, my developers are complaining that they can't run things locally on their machines. So let's start from the beginning. Can we build a system where I can run this locally? I can test it with unit tests. I can push this all the way through to Git. And Cursor is the one that helped me out. So I'll give a quick demo. I didn't know how to present this super well. So I'll start with a demo. I'll work to the code. And then I'm going to be completely honest with you and share all my chat prompt with y'all in the source code so you can see my frustrations. You can see where I got my butt kicked. You can see my reverts, and you can see how my logic got us to an enterprise-ready app. So one of the first problems was my team's complaint, I have a bad pod. From security, it's like, what is a bad pod, right? So I said, cool, let's build a way to delete just bad pods. I don't want to delete good pods because they're good. So it started going through and it said, hey, here's all your pods. This worked great in testing, but when you throw 15, 30,000 pods at this in a Kubernetes cluster, it starts breaking. So I said, hey, I don't know how to do server-side pagination. Can you do this for me? And I said, cool. So Cursor was able to work with me and say, hey, let me build this for you. Then I had developers saying, hey, well, I have to run this specific script on this specific pod with this specific label. So we said, cool, Cursor, can you give me the ability to build a script that can run on these certain conditions, put it in this file, and then allow teams to run it when need. And it gives you that ability right here. Lastly, teams are like, hey, I need to make sure that my network connectivity is working. So I said, cool, let's see if Cursor can build us Nmap, right? Once again, I don't want to drop Nmap on my machine because if an attacker ever gets on that pod, then guess what? They got Nmap. So I said, hey, what do we have here? And it said, hey, let's build this network checker. Cursor said, hey, if you do it this way, you don't have to put anything on disk. So I said, cool, 8.8.8.8, right? We all know it. Can I hit it on 53? It comes back. Great. And then I said, hey, my teams want to test some of their read-only APIs. So can you build me something that can query their API safely and securely? The first iteration on this, it gave me all possible verbs, which broke a lot. But that being said, we can go and say HTTP, right? And if you have internal clusters, you can hit all those internal clusters to be able to do that same testing. That being said, as you see through my Cursor history, when I stepped through this, right, the first thing I had to do was say, hey, initialize me a backend. So it was almost like vibe coding, like say, hey, build me this. And one thing I got to learn, since this was my very first 0 to 1 app, was how do I go from vibe coding to I don't know, hit that buzzword now of like context engineering. And so as you go through my things, you'll see how I said, oh, this is breaking. Hey, this isn't enterprise ready. Make it enterprise ready, and Cursor will work through that. Awesome. I think I'm at time. Any questions? I'll share the source code, the repo to this afterwards, so you can feel free to play, iterate through it, and kind of see the logic as well.
So we don't have specific questions, but people did vote for more time for you. So if you have
Awesome.
anything to add, that will be awesome. Otherwise, we'll thank you.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was this was my first 0 to 1, and I did this about a year ago, and it sucked. It failed epically. I'm like, screw AI. AI sucks. This is never launching. When I did it this year, the biggest thing I found out was, hey, you have to be able to verbalize what you want, and then you have to be able to write it down. If you can't do any of those, you shouldn't be doing any of this. But once you can do it in a bullet form, then make sure you set your rules with the cursor or with whatever engine you're using first and foremost, right? And then, because it actually deleted some files it shouldn't have originally, that's why you'll see a chunk of time that's just completely removed because I rage quit for a little bit. But then the last piece of it was I said, hey, now that I know how I want to do this, because I do develop, like, let's start with piece one. Let's do the local development first. Once that works, let's do the next piece. Let's build a Docker image. And then as I'm prompt engineering, a lot of times I'm like reject, reject, okay, apply. And then it's actually as they're messing up, I'm making sure to update my rules so that that it doesn't keep messing up. And I found out that by the end of the project, my rules, while they were super long and horrible to read through, it actually started giving me better answers. I'm also super poor, and so I couldn't use some of the cool agents out there that had the high tokens. So I kind of had to like play, when can I contribute to this? So all that being said, I would say it's frustrating building 0 to 1, but it can work. You can vibe code, context engineer, pick a buzzword to get you there. And then you can actually empower the developers to make smarter decisions safely and securely. Also, y'all were talking about having your coder do dumb things. Mine talks to me in Yoda, Jar Jar Binks. Um, Chewbacca's the worst every 10% of the time. My rules are in there too. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.